Hi, and welcome to this week's program of the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. My name is Farheen, and I'm so excited that all of you are here with us today. Each week, we connect with and hear from speakers who usually have a message focused on our love for innovation, entrepreneurship, and education. Today, we have a very special presentation by Kate Byrne, the President of International Media / SOCAP Global. She will be giving us advice on how to make impactful investments in purpose-driven companies with a sneak preview of SOCAP, I assume SOCAP, Virtual, a global impact summit. The virtual gathering of global changemakers addressing the world's toughest challenges through market-based solutions will take place from October 19th to the 23rd. Kate will go over the themes of the 5-day virtual conference of the largest and most diverse members of the global impact investing community on how to have a more equitable future for all. With that said, Kate, please take it away.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Farheen. Thanks so much, everyone. I'm so excited that you're here. I'm going to jump right in as there's a lot to cover in this topic. So what exactly is impact investing? Well, to be quite frank, really what it is, it's when you make an investment and it's a financial vehicle that delivers both a social good result as well as a financial return on investment. Now, this is not a new term, by the way. This has been in practice since the days of Benjamin Franklin, who arranged for a number of guild licenses for his workers. The Rothschild family did this back in 19th century England when they put together a housing loan so their workers could have fair housing. But to me, the thing that I found most interesting about impact investing is, and very timely I might add, is its connection and correlation with the civil rights movement and also achieving equity for all. Back in 1969, there was a tax act that made it available for philanthropic foundations to provide not only programmatic contributions, but also get a return. And then later on in 1977, there was the opportunity to pass a law called the Community Reinvestment Act. This was being done so that banks, in order to remain in good standing, had to demonstrate that they had in fact given loans and financial resources to urban African Americans to ensure that they would have a fair and likely a good, safe livelihood. Now, the group got together in 2007 when the term was actually coined, and it was a group that was led by Ford Foundation, some wealthy European banks, high net worth individuals. So one of the things that they realized was that philanthropy alone was not going to be enough. The amount of social change that needed to take place was going to require capital markets in corporations as well as foundations. So with that, now that more institutional and traditional financial companies are getting involved, we've created what is called a filter, that is the Environment Social Governance, ESG filter. And what happens is we lay this over, we're looking at investments to determine that, in fact, there is purpose-driven and social good that is coming about. The environment is all about how is a company behaving as an environmental steward. Social is exactly as you would imagine. It's really how a company is addressing its stakeholders. That starts with their staff, vendors, suppliers, customers, of course, and then the broader based community. With the G coming in on how are you actually running your company? What are your shareholder right abilities? What's your CEO pay? What are your diversity practices? With this, we apply this to a broad array of what we call asset classes. And like anything, there are obviously going to be a couple of different extremes. On the left, we've got those that are really only wanting to focus on return. On the right, we have the impact only really want to do the social good. And it's in the middle where we're really starting to see some interest start to bubble up, which is what really modern day impact investing right now is. The first is responsible investing, and that's where you're really taking that ESG lens and trying to mitigate a risk and retain value. So this can be something along the lines of if you're focusing on divesting and screening from a coal stock, from any kind of negative sin account, if you will. But it's all about really mitigating the risk and making sure that it's a sound value in terms of an investment. Sustainable investing is all about the impact opportunity. It's where, for instance, can you focus on and help solar, where there's tremendous new alternative market that needs to be built. Social responsible investing is also known as SRI and has been along for quite a while. Really is where we dive in and we take a look at what are the different tweaks we can take to, again, enhance more the impact with less involvement on the return. So think about this as divesting from supporting private prisons and such, and the impact that that has on the greater, both on the lives of the prisoners and former prisoners, as well as the overarching community as well. And then we have pure play impact investing, whereby there's a combination of equal priority to return financially as well as social impact. And then those who really are only more focusing on the impact alone. Now, there is definitely a moment afoot and a movement afoot. And by this, we have seen tremendous growth, especially the last 2 years, it's doubled. But since 2012, we've almost experienced a 300% growth. Now, why is that happening? Well, we've got two new groups that are really entering into the investing field. And those are the millennials and the next generation wealth groups and the inheritors. These are people that are savvier. They're much more sensitive, especially to the situation of climate, and they want to see change driven. And with the women have a tendency, and frankly are greater, there's a disproportionate amount of impact of climate on women. So they're really doubling down, and they tend to be a little bit more community based. Now, to me, in my mind, the way I look at impact investing is it's essentially stakeholder theory in practice through a financial lens. And by that, I mean, in September next month, we're going to be celebrating the 50th anniversary of Milton Friedman's letter on shareholder primacy that he wrote to the New York Times. 14 years later, Ed Freeman, who is a university professor at Darden, UVA's business school, provided a counter theory, and that was stakeholder, stating that because business is in fact at the hub of an entity and has impact to all the different stakeholder groups around it, it would make sense that stakeholder, they need to take care of everybody that's involved within their ecosystem, because we live in and experience more of a, I'd say, circular and regenerative economy. This only makes sense. So it's really exciting to see a lot of this change take place. We're also starting to see significant measurement in its success, be it from organizations such as Morningstar, all the way to renowned professors like George Serafim, who've been demonstrating that now that we've got 10 years under our belt, which is statistically enough time to demonstrate, yes, there's a steady foundation of response, that indeed there is a greater performance by these impact invest oriented accounts. So now, how will your financial returns be impacted, right? Is there a way to do good without getting completely hammered in financial returns, which is something we call, can I do this? Is it all concessionary? And I'm going to just answer back that, impact investing is an investment in general. And whenever you're talking about an investment, you have to take into consideration all sorts of concessions. But of course, it's a balance between risk and reward. And now that a number of opportunities that used to be only to the philanthropic are now available through retail, through banking, and more people are beginning to get involved, I think now more than ever is a terrific time to start dipping your toe and getting involved. There's a reason why almost every type of financial institution is in fact embracing this. So in the case of, say, banks and wealth advisors and financial institutions, they're doing it for twofold. One, really to retain and acquire talent. They need to demonstrate the relevance in the business place of practicing this to able to really move forward and get great talent. Secondly, their clients are demanding it, right? And so when you are able to have access to both social good and financial return, it increases the number of benefits and the broader opportunities that you're offering people. Folks such as institutions and family foundations enjoy impact investing primarily because it enables them to grow their endowment because they're able to leverage broader based assets. And then also, frankly, they're able to advance their core impact goals that they want to move forward, that they haven't been able to in the past. And then government investors are finally able to say, hooray, these government programs that we've been asking people to support through municipal bonds and government bonds actually do in fact work, and they're playing a key role. So all that being said, how do you get started? Do you have to have a gazillion dollars? Where's your entry point? So I'm going to take a step back and say, first, ask yourself a couple of questions. So what kinds of products do you buy? Right there, you vote with your wallet. That's first and foremost. So are you supporting companies that have values that you believe in and treat their employees well? Secondly, where do you work? Is that something that's aligned with your values and the benefits and the 401ks and such that they offer you? How are those actually being allocated and what's inside of those? And then from your own personal standpoint, when we start looking at your cash and your own portfolio, from a cash standpoint, where do you bank, right? So I know for instance, myself, I've banked at Wells Fargo for years, but now I'm really gearing up and getting ready to perhaps shift to a community bank or community development financial institute, because I'm realizing with having my checking and my savings at a large bank, nothing bad. Any of you large bankers, they're great and they do great programs. However, are they putting your money and taking it and making loans for those types of projects that you want to support? Whereas in a community or a credit union, they actually take those funds and they put it right back into the community. So they put it towards programs, especially relevant in these COVID-19 times, to help supporting very beleaguered social entrepreneurs and just regular small business folks. They look to help food programs. They look to help after school programs. They look to help housing entities that can't be handled on finance alone. So it's something to consider. When you're taking a step back and you're looking at your portfolio, probably the easiest place a lot of people suggest is to take a look at your mutual funds. And you can get insights and information on that by asking, well, either going to a platform like a Morningstar or asking if you have a wealth advisor to run a list of all of your mutual fund and what are the individual stocks within it, and take a look and review and say, do I like that? Do I not? With regards to mutual funds, there's two types really. One is passive, and that's really follows an index. So there's a basket, a group of companies that are put together in an index. And as so goes the performance of those companies, so goes your fund. Now, the benefit of that is it's usually lower out of pocket because it's not necessarily managed as hands-on as others are. Now, the downside, so the fees are less because you're not covering as much overhead. The downside of it is actually the fact that there's less hands-on management going on. So there's certain times when you're able to make the changes. And then also, there's really a great limit to your shareholder advocacy. So if you're somebody who really cares deeply about specific programs, you very well may want to take a look at what we call active. So an active fund is just that. You're supporting the fund manager, their strategy. You are familiar with their values that they look in and the practices that they support with the corporations that they're including within their fund. And it also gives you a fair amount of shareholder advocacy because the fund actually owns the stocks. And so there's much more hands-on ability to be able to make shifts as you see fit. There are a number of other offerings, everything ranging from a green bond, municipal bonds. Another area that's really been quite big, and actually I know we have someone from the Utah area, and the Sorensen Capital is a partner of ours and a supporter of ours. They're very big on opportunity zones, which has been a big, huge real estate play within these last 2 to 3 years. And then a huge area of growth right now are 529s and 401ks. In the past, one used to be, it was pretty beholden to 401, sort of a kind of just a basic meh kind of offering. It was, you had what you had, you weren't able to make changes. But right now, that next generation workforce is beginning to shake trees and ask exactly, how can we make some changes and make sure that those are creating more impact, and that my dollars and my savings are supporting something that I truly believe. So how is impact investing actually, making a difference? I think one, there has to be an intentionality when you're building out your portfolio. Two, there has to be significant transparency, both from yourself and what you want and your demands and the questions you're asking. Also with the companies that you're supporting and if they're hitting or missing marks. And third, a real honest dialogue with your fund manager on what their beliefs are. Second is also measurement and management. So by that there are clear, it reminds me of SMART measurements, that there's specific numbers that we're trying to reach, or at least aspirations that we're trying to achieve together within a certain amount of time. And then clearly that somebody is managing to that end. That doesn't mean that it's going to happen overnight, because hello, we're dealing with systemic change, which is never an easy, quick path, especially not if it's going to be sustainable by any means of the imagination. So it's really more about helping you make better decisions as opposed to dictating what exactly you're going to do. Now, areas that tend to be low-hanging fruit, where we're the first and easiest places for impact investing to get into, are those that are, makes sense, more easily manageable. So I believe we've done a very good job on the E, environment piece, and the G, the governance piece. It's that S, social piece, that I think is quite tricky, and probably within the next year to 18 months, we're going to be starting to see some new products in that arena and some new agreed upon measurements that will help us define greater success on that front. Housing is a natural place because it's very capital intensive. And again, philanthropy alone can't handle it. So you need to have more funds. Energy and climate, because you're able to easily measure the carbon emissions. Water, the same thing. Responsible sourcing and such. Education is another, whereby if private sector isn't supporting it, are there ways that there can be additional funds that can come in and help subsequent products and programs that the school is not able to have? And then finally, I also think healthcare. Unfortunately, there are a lot of poor people are just stuck paying a lot of money and getting really, really bad products. And so is there a way that we can all pull together and work together and drive greater change? So one of the areas, and I would really recommend that people come to learn even more about all of this, is SOCAP. So SOCAP Virtual, we're going to be doing the event, and historically it's been 3,500 people at Fort Mason in San Francisco. This year we were forced, and I will continue to do this from this point forward, to do and participate in the virtual theater. This will enable us to create greater access and to frankly broaden the conversation to a truly global. While historically we've always been, enjoyed at least visibility from at least 72 different countries in person, here we'll be able to have much more so en masse. I also really recommend that people go to and listen to our podcast, which is Money and Meaning. It's very informative, educational, and gives some great takeaways. And then we're also in the process right now of building out year-round touch points so that you can dig deeper into not only impact investing, but any one of our virtual themes that we are going to be building this year's program. What we do is we believe in building our program for the community together with the community. And so we do a very arduous task of reaching out to our 70,000 large people groups that we've been getting together for the last 13 years and asking them, what are the conversations that you want to have? Now, this year, what I want to make sure everyone understands is there will be a social equity and a social justice theme that will run throughout each of this. New to this year as well, we will be demanding, frankly, calls to action. There's been way too much, as I say, blah, 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 and not enough of do. We really need to start taking our ideas and implementing them. Otherwise, they're just going to be a bunch of sort of empty promises, and we're not going to get the change that we so desperately need. There are a few other great resources The GIN, which is a Global Impact Investing Network, is got fantastic white papers, research. They also have a great event. There's GSG, there's a whole host, and I'm happy to send a follow-up to folks, listing for folks to be able to share and take a look. And then I also have arranged so that there will be a special code for all of your fellow members and yourselves to join us at SOCAP. So I hope you will make the opportunity to do so. And with that, I just want to close and say that to me, impact investing really leads us to a new capitalism. You know, it's not going to be a quick fix. As I said earlier, it's going to take a while. Impact investors are partners, right? They're helping us lead the change. And I think that money in good hands can do great things. And I just hope that you all take a moment to consider getting involved and start participating. And so with that, if you would like to get in touch with me, I'm at kbyrne@intentional.co. And I look forward to hearing from you and talking.
Great. Thank you so much, Kate, for your wonderful presentation. Before we go to question and answer period, I wanted to quickly introduce the other members on the call. So we have Rushton in San Jose, Cecilia in San Jose, Mahmoud, who's also in San Jose, and then Shags in Walnut Creek, Sandy in Fremont, Cal in Oakland, Gabby in Salt Lake City, and finally Vandana in New Delhi. And I just wanted to open up to questions, and I believe that Cal has the first one. So Cal, go ahead and unmute and you can ask your question.
Hi, thanks, Kate. Very interesting presentation. In looking at especially some of those last slides you had, pretty easy to imagine that going into this is a real information overload. And I'm wondering if there's any independent like scorecard. So a scorecard that's done on these different socially beneficial funds that is done independently, not by the company that's actually producing it. That's number one. And number two, maybe related to that, is there any tool available online where you can go and sort of adjust what the things are that you're interested in? For example, I'm big on clean energy. I want to look at maybe just clean energy and its governance is well managed, and not have to weed through hundreds of different options.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I've got to say, that is definitely one of the biggest issues. Is you're absolutely right. It is information overload. So that's why I actually think that there are places like C-Note, which is local. It's based in Oakland. They can help and provide insights and information and clarify what works and what doesn't. I think Morningstar, that is one that really has done a lot of work, and it doesn't, you know, it's not necessarily their products. They literally are looking at the top. You can get a listing of the top products and what works and what doesn't work. And then other resources like the GIN and GSG will feather up specific measurement places that can give you the insights that you need. And I'm also going to say, like anything, even though it's third party, there are, I believe there are still some biases, if you will. So I would still look at a couple. I mean, instead of thousands, you might want to look at 2 or 3 just to sort of gauge. Because some are going to be more risk-oriented, some are going to be more return-oriented. So I would just take a look at it that way, if that makes sense.
Thank you. So the next question is going to be from Cecilia. Cecilia, go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. Kate, thank you for your presentation. This is an area that's been of interest to me ever since I read a book called The Blue Sweater by Jacqueline Novogratz, whom you've probably heard of. And so is your organization somewhat like the Acumen Fund, or do you form an association where we can go to your organization and find information about those kinds of things?
Yes. So SOCAP is literally a platform that is a convener, and then we amplify voices. I almost went into that piece at the beginning, but then I didn't want to overload on that piece. But really what we do is, if you go to socialcapitalmarkets.net, we were started, pardon me, in 2008. Our whole goal is to equip, educate, and connect the ecosystem, and really to frankly tap in and unlock the power of markets to accelerate change. So we will have blogs, we will have community get-togethers, we have virtual meetings. So it's really sort of I think of it as a global campfire upon which those at the intersection of money and meaning gather. And then we share the mic, and we have folks, luminaries such as Jed Emerson, one of the early day fathers. We're going to be having Sir Ronald Cohen, who is one of the leading, and again, grandfathers. We've had Eunice from Grameen Bank. So our whole thing is to enable you to have as much access as possible. And then this year, new to us this year though, is we're going to be dividing our content into, sort of introductory, mid-level, intermediary, and then more technical. So you'll be able to better guide. Up to this point, our website has been frankly poor. No, it's true. It literally was a landing page for an event, and that really isn't that helpful. So we're really doubling down and hoping eventually to create an institute.
Well, access was kind of the magic word in what you said, because having just returned, so Cal and I served in different places in the Peace Corps, but we were both evacuated in March back to the US. They send you back to your home of record, whether you want to go there or not. But I have sort of big idea initiatives for change in not just my community where I worked in Ethiopia, but for the region or the country at large. And I think that sort of social entrepreneurial capital like this is really the thing that is needed. And it's where to find those that will listen to you.
And every year we have social entrepreneurs come and we provide a means to meet, and we actually have companies that support them. The other piece, and you really stated it, we need to start really getting the money into the hands and the resources into the hands of the people that are doing the work. We in the industry have not done a good job at that. I think we've done a lot of talking, we've patted ourselves on the back, but now this, hopefully from this year forward, and I'm working on some projects, I want us to become more of a conduit to those resources to get to those people that are doing the work. So that, I see a necessary evolution.
Yeah. Well, industry is too big doing its own thing to be boots on the ground in places like that.
Correct.
So I will yield the floor to the next person, but thank you for answering my questions.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Perfect. And we have a few more minutes. I'm going to ask one last question and then we'll end the recording from there. So we have Mahmoud who asks, how is ESG set up, and who/how is it governed? And, is it by federal laws?
I don't believe it's necessarily by federal laws, but I know it is mutually agreed upon by all the different investing groups who have come around and agreed to, these are the measures that we're going to be using. And it's a filter that everybody uses, and it's become the vernacular. Now, what also happens is, and it's a good question, that's where the measurement really comes in and the management comes in, because all too quickly, as you can see right now, it's very opportunistic time. Everyone wants to be hip. So that's why we have to go back and make sure that do we have clear definitions of what the E&E is, and what is good, bad, ugly, and social and governance and such.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And so since we are at a 30-minute mark, Rotary members and guests, please make sure you fill out the attendance section and leave us a comment. Also, if you have an awesome idea for a program, please use the link to submit your ideas. Thank you again, Kate, and I believe Shags has a little something he'd like to play. And I will turn it to you for your final words.
To me?
Yep. Yeah. So if you just want to say something at the end.
I was so entranced. I just want to say thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to every one of you. Everyone is an impact investor, and it can start with money, cold hard cash, but it really can be as simple as what I said, where you work, what products you buy, and then it is a lot easier to get involved than you think. I think when everyone's talking about money, there's a concern that it's going to be too overwhelming. It's a lot less opaque right now. And really, the environment, the world is really depending on each of us. So I look forward to seeing the impact that each of you makes.
Great, thank you so much. And with that said, I'll see everyone next week.